Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to talk December daily, or documenting December. If you've been with me for a little while, you may know that in previous years I have created my December daily albums, and I have shared the flip throughs of those here on my channel. I will add a little link here if you'd like to look at those. In 2020, I decided not to create a December daily album. I felt that the project was taking up too much of my time and energy, and I was creating 12 by 12 layouts as well. So I felt that it was a little bit of doubling up, and I made a decision not to create an album in 2020. I ended up regretting that decision. So going into Christmas 2021, I knew that I wanted to get back into documenting December in this 6x8 album format. But again, life got too busy, and here we are in July 2022, and I have barely even started on documenting my 2021 December. So what you see here in front of you now is the album that I had started to prepare and intended to use for my 2021 Christmas documenting. And this here, I'll take you through in just a moment, is a little bit of sketching and planning that I've worked on recently. As I said, this is the album that I planned on using for 2021. It's from 49 and Market. It's one of their three, I can't remember what the range is called, but this was a cream album, and then I purchased some Christmas rub-ons and I think another pack of rub-ons that had some pink elements in them, and I decorated the outside of the album by adding rub-ons to it. Now, it looks great. I'm really happy with the way that it looks. However, it doesn't actually match the aesthetic of the supplies and what I have started creating inside the album. So I've toyed with the idea. I'm sorry that it's going out of focus now. Hopefully it will come back in focus in just a minute. I've toyed with the idea of just leaving the outside of the album as it is and going with it, but the more that I think about it, the more that I know I'm not happy with it, and if I'm not happy with it, I'm not going to enjoy it while I'm working on it and in future. So I do have a plan to try to recover this. I don't know if I will film that because I don't know how well it's going to work, but I will say that straight up, that I'm not sure that I'm going to keep the cover of this album. So what I'm intending to do in this little intro here is to just take you through what I have started in my album, to take you through what I have got here in terms of planning, and then I will also do a really quick flip through of the supplies that I'm going to be using. Now, I am full up with a cold at the moment. It is winter here in my part of the world, so the cold and flu season is in full force. I have got my ginger tea here, so I hope you will excuse me if I need to take a sip every now and then. Okay, so opening up this album, what I have begun to do, I've created this little inside cluster, which is something that I have done on all of my December albums. I've also embellished the inside cover with some embossing, some gold embossing using a star stencil. Now, if I do go ahead and recover the outside of my album, I will almost certainly be recovering the inside as well. So stay tuned for that if that's what I end up doing. All right, so let's just zoom in a little bit here so we can get a bit closer to see what it is that I'm working with. All right, this is my opening title. As you can see, I'm going for a really nice, soft pastel aesthetic and color scheme with this album. So I had this acetate. It's a doily acetate. I've had it in my stash for many, many, many years. It's one of those things that I have liked to hoard but never really been able to use. I thought it was a perfect piece. I love having a see-through element to open up my page. I used my silhouette to cut the word December. I used my typewriter to type the word 2021, and this is a little a little ephemera piece from one of the collections that I'm using. And if I take this out and hold it up a little bit closer, you can see I have added some pink stitching around the border. I've stitched the December word, the 2021, down with that same pink cotton. And for this embellishment here, I have actually tied it on, so you can see at the back there. I've actually tied that on because I didn't want any adhesive to be showing on the back. I'm fine with the stitching showing, but I didn't want any adhesive to be showing. So that was the best way for me to adhere that to that acetate piece. This is just a piece of pattern paper here. It has nothing on it. It's not going to have anything on it. It just purely serves as a backing for that acetate piece because this here was too busy to have sitting behind that. On the back of this, I will be adding a 6x8 family photo. I've already left myself a little sticky note there to say that. And here, this was an idea that I just came to me. Excuse me for a minute. This is using an Ali Edwards element. I think it was from her 2021 December Daily collection. I bought some digitals for her, and this is a wonky circle cut file or page. I think in the original it was a 6x8, but I only wanted to use a portion of it because I had this idea of having these see-through elements and then opening up to my reason why journaling. So this whole page to here is essentially the reason why I'm creating this album, and it talks about the regrets that I have from deciding not to create an album in 2020. These here were cut out on my silhouette. It's using a font that I downloaded, and I can find the name of that font if that's something that you're interested in. And yeah, nothing on the back at the moment. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there, but that's essentially as far as I got in terms of the beginning of my album. Now, I'm not someone that has done foundation pages ever. It's just not something that I think works for me. But what I did do last year was I actually created just a few bits and pieces. Some of them are here in my album, and some of them I'll show you in my supplies. But I organised a little prep day for some scrappy friends here in Perth, and during that prep day, these were some of the things that I worked on. So I have this full page little filler piece. Now this is an idea, a technique idea that I got from Dealy D. And it's using some vellum sandwiched between a cut file, and it's a stained glass effect that is created by using some alcohol ink pens onto the vellum, and it's really pretty, and that will serve just as a nice little full page filler or divider, excuse me, somewhere in my album. I should say this cut file came from Paige Evans. It didn't have the tabs in it. That's something that I added myself in Silhouette before I cut it out on my Silhouette Cameo. This is another little full page. I expect it will be a filler, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use it yet. This is something that I made myself. I used I traced a heart, a star, and a Christmas tree in my Silhouette Studio software, and I laid them out and then divided them all in half, so only half of each shape has been cut out, which is what allows them to pop up. Again, not really sure what I'm going to do with this yet, but it's something that I created and I will try and incorporate somewhere in my page. This here is just a piece of clear acetate that I used my Silhouette to cut some gold stars in a scattered pattern, and that's with a gold vinyl, and then transferred it, used some transfer tape and transferred it all onto that piece of acetate. Again, that could be a filler, or that could house a story or some journaling or some photos. I'm not sure how I'm going to use that yet. This here I had created with the intention of using it as my opening page. I really liked the way that it looked, but it wasn't what I had hoped to use for the opening page. Not sure why. Again, I think this is indicative of where my creative headspace was at the end of last year. I was feeling a little bit stifled, a little bit creatively blocked and unsure of myself. So looking at it now, I actually really love this piece to create it. I used my silhouette to cut this Christmas tree design twice from pink, once for the front and then flipped for the back. And then I also just traced the outline of it and cut it out from the center of this piece of white cardstock and this piece of patterned paper. In the sandwich between them all is a piece of vellum which I have run through my Cuttlebug with a polka dot embossing folder, then sandwiched it all together and added some stitching around the border. So as I said, looking at this now, I actually really love this and I will incorporate it into my album somewhere. I'm just not sure where that's going to be. So that's it in terms of what I have in the album. The rest of what I have sitting in here are my page protectors. Now, because I haven't really made a start and that makes me feel a little bit overwhelmed, not knowing where I'm starting, where I'm going. I have got some little sketches and plans that I have made, which I will work on a little bit more before I actually start on my documenting. One of the first things that I did, because I am working in this 49 and Market album, which I haven't used before, it comes with page protectors in sizes that I am not used to working with. So I've just created this little cheat sheet for myself where I have drawn out or sketched out each of the different types of page protectors that I have, the size of the pockets, and I've also indicated how many of them I have. So that's going to help me with my planning. To know what page protectors I'm going to use and what photos I'm going to use for each different page protector. One of the things I did manage to do at the end of the year in 2021, or as I was going through December, was I did manage to just jot down some of the stories. So one thing that I have moved away from now is creating a true December daily in the sense of having a story told on each day of December. That, I think, is the part that became a little bit overwhelming and a little bit too time consuming for me. So rather than having my documenting work that way, I'm choosing to tell stories instead. So I have picked out all of the different Christmas related stories or just stories about things that happened in December, and I've jotted down some notes about all of those. As you can see, some of those I've crossed off only because they either didn't happen, it was something that I had planned but didn't happen, like the letters to Santa. My kids didn't actually sit down to write letters to Santa last year. So it could be that, or that I didn't end up taking any photos that I could document. So last year my kids had their own little Christmas trees in their rooms, but it was a little bit chaotic and I never got photos of them. So I've scratched that off. I don't need to include that story without the photos. There will be opportunities to tell that story in subsequent years. So I've got my list of stories here that I want to tell, which helps to guide me in my planning. Okay, and then the other thing that I've done to complement that documentation of stories is I have gone through my Lightroom catalog where I've imported all of the photos that I took in December. I've sorted out the ones that I want to include in this album, and then I've used the contact sheet printing option in the Lightroom print module to print out just smaller versions of all of the photos that I know that I want to include in this album, or that I think that I want to include in this album. And then what I will do is I will go and cut those out and group them into piles according to the story that they represent, and then I can use that along with my story notes and my page protector layouts to start planning out the stories in my album, where they're going to go, and that will then help me decide what size to print my photos and then cull them down if I need to. So that's a quick walkthrough of the album that I've prepared and my planning. Now I will go and grab my supplies and just do a really quick little flip through of the supplies that I'm going to be using. Okay, so here we are with my collection of supplies. It's a little difficult for me to show you, so I'm just have this here so that I can show you what I have most of my supplies organized in. This is one of the IKEA Fiala boxes, which unfortunately are no longer available in Australia. I'm not sure if they're available in other parts of the world. But for me, this is perfect. It's got space to hold my 12 by 12 papers, as well as a section here that's really good for 6 by 8. There's a longer piece here, which I don't have anything in at the moment. I've got space for my 3 by 4 cards, and then some little bits and pieces across the top. So rather than trying to hold this here and pull things out, I'll just pop it over to the side or down onto the floor and pull some things out to show you. The collections that I am using for this album, it's a mixture of Uniquely Creative's 2021 Christmas lines. There were 2 of them, and also Rosie's Studio, the Christmas line from 2021. Now, if I just bring out these little 6 by 8 pieces here, because they all came with 12 by 12 patterned papers, I have already gone and cut a whole heap of them down to 6 by 8. But if I just fan these out here, it will give you a little bit of an idea of the kind of color scheme that I'm working with. It is lots of pastels. I have got a couple of older pieces that I've thrown in here, some florals, lots of pink, which is something that I love. And some gold foiling as well. So that's just a little selection of the 6 by 8 papers that I've cut down. I also went through my digital scrapbooking supplies, and I have made my own journal cards on top of the journal cards that I have, which I'll take you through in just a moment. So some using my Mink to create some gold foil cards, which are all of these ones here. I think these are all Inner Creative bubble cards. I also had a play with using the foil quill onto some printed journal cards. So this was a technique that Amy Gretchen goes through in really great detail on her YouTube channel. But for these, I knew that I wanted to have some colored elements, and then I've added the gold foil. They didn't turn, some of them, this one turned out really well. Some of the others, like this one with the words on it, not so good. So I don't know how many of these I'll use, but they are here if I want to use them. And you can see if I flip through, I've got all of those ones there. The rest of the journal cards that I've got to use are a mixture of, again, some of those pattern papers from the collections that I'm using that I've trimmed down. I used some journal cards which came from scrapbook.com. And then I've also gone through my stash of older products from previous December daily projects, and like these ones here, these are really old Ali Edwards ones, and I picked out the ones with the backgrounds that I really liked and that worked with the color scheme that I'm working with this year. I do have in here, in this box, I have some acetate pieces. I've got just some plain, I'll have to zoom back out again. I have some plain cardstock in this section in the back. I've got some full size 12 by 12, because although these 6 by 8s are really good for filling pockets, there are a lot of times that I know that I want to create a full page, including the section with the hole punches, and for that I need larger than 6 by 8, so I've kept some of the 12 by 12s in here. I have a little bag which has got ephemera and bits and pieces that I collected during the month that I'd like to incorporate into the album. I have another bag which has got some cut files on it that I've already pre-cut and intend to try and incorporate. I've got some glitter, different types of gold glitter cardstock in a bag here. In this pocket down here, I have a whole heap of frames. Now, some of these are from one of the ephemera packs, and some of them have come from, these ones are just paper. This is from one of the Uniquely Creative ephemera packs, but all of these chipboard ones here have come from Rosie's Studio. And I'm just going to pop this away and bring out these ones here. So as part of my preparation, although I don't do foundation pages, I did have some ideas of elements that I wanted to create. And we'll zoom back in again now. Ideas of elements that I wanted to create, inspired by things that I had seen other people creating on social media, inspired by things that I had seen in other collections, just things that I thought that I could make myself. So to begin with, I saw somewhere someone had some journal cards that were embossed with just single shapes, and so to set myself up to create those, I have layered a whole heap of just cutouts of this Christmas tree, and when the time comes I plan on using this to emboss some journal cards. I've also got the words ho 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 in there. That's an idea that I had. I created these little stitched pieces. I think the inspiration for these may have come from something that was included in one of the Ali Edwards kits for 2021, but I created some little sequin mixes and trimmed down some vellum, or used a die cut to cut down some vellum into these, first of all, these little pennant or these banner shapes. And then I have sewn around the edges with my sewing machine. So I've got the banners, and I also have 2 stars. I've used pink and I've used green because those are the colours that are going to work with what I've got in my album. I also have just these little bows that I cut out from, this one is obviously red cardstock. This has got a gold cardstock front and a pink cardstock back, and I may use those somewhere in my album. These little pockets, there's an Australian company that I shop with on Etsy, and when I placed an order for some twine with them last year, they sent me through these really cute little embossed envelope pockets, and it gave me the idea to try and create these myself to include in my December daily album. So that's what I've done here. I chose a couple of different pattern papers. They're fairly plain in design. I found some envelope cut files that I could use with my Silhouette Studio software. I cut the envelopes out, and then once they were cut, before they were assembled, I ran them through some embossing folders. So on this one, it's, I'm not sure if you can see it, it's like a candy stripe. This one's a plain polka dot. This one is a wood grain, and this one is a star and dot pattern. So I ran them through my with the embossing folders and then put them together, and they're really sweet, fun little detailed pockets that I can use in my album. And here is another little DIY job that I've made. I'm pretty sure these tags were inspired by a Rosie's Studio collection that, it's not a Christmas collection, but I saw them included in another collection, and I wanted to recreate something similar to use in my December documenting. So to make these, I have some gold, sorry about it going out of focus there. Let's see if I can get it back. Come on. Okay, I've got some gold glitter cardstock that I've cut into a banner. Come on, there we go. Into a banner. I've stamped a sentiment onto some white cardstock using either a red or a pink ink, and then attach them together with a little bit of twine. So I chose stamps with sentiments that I knew I was likely to use in my album, and I've created a whole bunch of those that I can add in when I want to. I also made these gold, they're chunky gold glitter stars. Now again, this was inspired, I think they came from an old crepe paper collection. I remember seeing these really chunky gold glitter stars in an old crepe paper collection, but I didn't have them, and I'd never found anything that I could use that was similar. But I was shopping at a local discount store, and they had these chunky gold glitter sheets. I took them, they were A4 sheets. I added some double-sided adhesive sheets onto the back, and then ran them through my die cutting with some different shaped stars. And they'll be really fun to include. I also used, now this was a cut file from Ali Edwards that was replicating a physical product, so it's a digital product, and these are just some little tabs. I cut them out of gold glitter, and when I have things that I want to pop into my album, I can use these little gold tabs, and then they will sit through the ring and I can attach whatever it is to the middle of that there. So I've cut some of those out ready to go. Also in this little bowl here, I've got some really small wood grain pieces, which is old. They're really old, from Elle Studio, and some wood grain trees and stars in that little bowl there. I also have a little bowl of die cut stars. Now this is using a confetti die, which I'm pretty sure came from Prima. I'm not sure if it's available anymore, but I have a gold confetti die and also a heart confetti die, and I really, really love using them. So for this project, I've used more of a champagne gold rather than a bright gold, and I have die cut them in the glitter and also the foil. And I know that I'm going to be using these on almost every page because it's just something that I love to do. And the last little DIY prep thing that I have made are some little sequin shaker mixes. So I sat down with all of my supplies and all of my sequins, and believe me when I say I have a lot of sequins. And I just put together some mixes that I think will go with the supplies that I have. So I've got some sort of assorted mixes here with different shapes, different colors. I've got some greens, some minty greens, and more of a pink. I also grabbed these really large sequins because I think I can probably use some of those as well, and then a little pink peppermint candy and clear mix. So I've got quite a few different little sequin mixes there that I can incorporate through my album. And then the last thing to show you is just all my little collections of ephemera. So I had quite a few different little bags of ephemera from the different collections that I'm using, and to try and make it easier for myself rather than having to sort through them all looking for something, I've kind of separated them in a way that makes sense to me. So in this little box I've got all of the word phrase little ephemera pieces. This one here has got all of the florals. There were lots of florals in the collections, and I know that in this album I'm going to include a lot of floral embellishments. In here, this is a kind of a little bit of a catch-all. I've got some old chipboard circles, which is from Felicity Jane many years ago. I've got some tags here, some larger circle and larger word die-cut ephemera. Lots of icons. There's Christmas trees, candy canes, little critters, things like that in there. So that's kind of my catch-all tray. And then in here I've just got some of the smaller little bits and pieces. The Rosie Studio collection came with some really gorgeous little vellum ephemera pieces, so I've picked out the ones that I think I might use in the album, and I've popped those here. I've got some really beautiful pastel stars here. These little red, what do we call them? Label tags. I'm not quite sure where I got those from, but I've got 4 of those and I popped them in there, and then a couple of little pieces that I have fussy cut out from some journal cards or patterned papers. I also have a little curated collection of ribbons that go with the supplies that I'm going to be using. I will have a little bowl of washi tape. I just haven't been through my collection of washi tape to add them to that yet. I will also be pulling out some inks that suit, some coloured inks that suit the colour scheme that I'm using. And of course I have my folder here which contains all of my Christmas stamps to incorporate as well. Nearly forgot this little collection of supplies here. So this is a box that has got a few different things in it. In this little box here I've got some twine, some coloured twines. I have also got some embroidery floss, which I have selected to coordinate with the supplies that I'm using. This one here has got some textural pieces, so I've got tissue paper in here, I've got some doilies, I've also got some tulle that coordinates with what I'm using, and I have some little pots here with different coloured gold flakes and some glitter mixes in there. And in this box I've got stickers. At the moment this is just mainly just the stuff that's come with the collections that I'm using. So I've got some puffy stickers. I've gone through my December daily stash and pulled out some older products that I had there. Twinkle All the Way, some word phrase puffy stickers, cardstock embellishments, some puffy word stickers, some more puffy word stickers, some flat stickers. These were some laser cuts that came with the Uniquely Creative collection. I'm not sure if I'll use them in this album, but we'll see. And I also have a couple of alphabet stickers that I had purchased to use in this album. What I will also be doing is going through my very extensive stash of letter stickers and thickers and pulling out some that coordinate with the products that I'm using so that I can incorporate those as well. Okay, so I think that's it now. I have walked you through what I've prepared in my album. I've talked about my planning process. We've been through my supplies. So all that is left now is for me to get stuck in. So I will leave it there. I will see you soon for some process videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.